Deformity. I noticed before they said anything, the hallway felt different. Not empty exactly, just rearranged in a way that suggested someone had already decided what mattered and what didn't. My key still worked, but the lock turned too easily. Deformity, like it had been replaced. They were in the kitchen talking about something small, groceries. A neighbor. My return didn't interrupt the rhythm. It folded into it. You're back early, my mother said, as if Berlin had been a short errand for me. I put my bag down and asked, where are the studio keys? A pause, not long enough to be dramatic, but long enough to confirm something had already been rehearsed. Oh, my father said lightly, we meant to tell you. We sold it. There it was, deformity, clean, efficient. Already past tense. I waited for the rest. An apology, maybe, or at least an explanation that acknowledged the scale of what they were saying. Instead, my mother added, I was just sitting there, deformity, and your brother needed help getting his startup off the ground. It made sense. I tried to picture the studio in that moment, how the light would hit the back wall around this time of day. Deformity, the way the floor still carried faint stains from old work, I had left it carefully. Not abandoned. Paused, you sold it. I repeated, yes, my father said, but it's not like we took something from you. You can paint anywhere. Deformity. That was when I smiled. Not because it was funny, because something inside me had just settled into place. What's funny? My mother snapped, a little sharper than before. I looked at them, really looked this time. Not as parents, not as people whose approval I had been orbiting for years. Just as two individuals who had made a decision based on an assumption. The studio you sold, I said slowly, wasn't yours to sell. Deformity. The silence that followed was different from the earlier one. This wasn't practiced. It had weight. My father frowned. Of course it was. It's under the family property. No, I said, still calm. It was transferred to me 2 years ago. Deformity. They both stared at me. I hadn't planned to bring it up. At the time, it hadn't felt important to announce. A lawyer had advised me to formalize things when I started getting international offers. It was routine, protective, quiet. Uniformity? You never told us that? My mother said, I didn't think I needed to. My father's posture shifted just slightly. There must be some misunderstanding. We signed the papers. I'm sure you did. Deformity. The words landed harder than I expected them to, because I wasn't angry, not in the way they seemed to be bracing for. There was no surge, no raised voice, just a steady awareness of where things stood now. What are you saying? My mother asked. Deformity. I'm saying, I replied, that the sale isn't valid. Another pause. This one stretched. My father reached for his phone, then stopped. For the first time, he looked uncertain, not about me, but about the situation itself. Deformity. You should have told us, he said, but it came out softer now, less like an accusation and more like something he was trying to convince himself of. Would it have changed anything? I asked. Neither of them answered. Deformity, because we all knew it wouldn't have. The decision had already been made, just like everything else. The assumption that my work was flexible, movable, secondary. That space could be reassigned without consequence. Only now, there was a consequence. I've already spoken to my lawyer, I continued. Before I came here, that wasn't entirely true. I had sent an email from Berlin when I first heard a vague mention of reorganizing assets. At the time, it felt distant, hypothetical. It didn't feel hypothetical anymore. What does that mean? My mother asked. It means the buyer will be contacted. The transaction will be reviewed. If necessary, reversed. My father exhaled slowly. This will create problems. Yes, I said, it will. Another silence. But this one didn't press on me. It sat between us, evenly distributed. For the first time, I realized I wasn't trying to fix it. Not the studio, not them. Just state things as they were. Deformity. You could have just asked, I added, not as a reprimand, but as a fact. My mother looked away. My father nodded once, but didn't say anything. The conversation didn't escalate. There was no argument, no sudden breakdown. Just a quiet shift. Deformity, like a structure adjusting to a weight it hadn't accounted for. I picked up my bag. Where are you going? My mother asked. I'm staying somewhere else for a few days, I said. Until this is sorted? She opened her mouth, then closed it again. Ernie, call me when you've spoken to someone, I added. About the sale? My father nodded again, more firmly this time. I walked out the same way I had come in, but it didn't feel like leaving anymore. Outside, the air felt sharper than I remembered. Deformity, or maybe I just noticed it more, the studio might come back to me. Legally, it probably would, but something else had already shifted. For years, I had treated that space as the center of everything I was building. A fixed point. Deformity, something that needed to be protected. Now I understood it differently. It had never been the walls or the light or the floor. It was the fact that I had built something of my own and that it existed whether they recognized it or not. Deformity, I started walking, not entirely sure where I was going, but for the first time in a long time, it didn't feel like I needed to explain that to anyone.